so deep rooted. So their personal lives are not, defined by those principles. And another important characteristic is that I think the main one given in that verse is that they have they cannot appreciate the devotee. They can appreciate the deity, but they cannot appreciate the devotee very well. This is one of the main symptoms of a Kanishta devotee.
I'm sorry, Didi. I forgot, but maybe for Emil, I'm not sure if he's familiar with these terms, like adhikar especially.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we can explain that as well.
Yeah. Sure. Adhikar just means one's qualification. So one's level of qualification. And so one way in which, no doubt you know the word Vaishnava. Vaishnava means a devotee, a saintly person. So Vaishnavas, they're sometimes categorized as being in different levels of different stages of development, or adhikar. And so there are three levels of Vaishnava in particular, which are described as being Kanishta adhikar, which means primary level devotee. Madhyam adhikar means middle level. And Uttam adhikar means the highest level devotee. And this is helpful for us because it gives us some idea of the standard, what's to be avoided, what's to be aspired after, what do we seek in our association, in the company that we keep, what qualities do we want to develop within ourselves. What I'm trying to say is that it's not that we're emphasizing a hierarchy. It's not like that. And if we were, as I said in the beginning, we don't really think of ourselves as being accountable at all anyway within any of those levels. But having some acquaintance with these different stages of development and what are the defining characteristics of each, that helps us in our inner cultivation, inner understanding of the ideal and understanding of what it is we are striving after. So what is mentioned, as I said, the main characteristic of the Kanishta adhikar, and also we can say, on the whole, we don't think of ourselves as being even countable, even on the scale. We're not even qualified to be assessed, but still we can recognize some of these characteristics within ourselves, right? So that is helpful in the overall trajectory of our development in Krishna consciousness. So the lowest level devotee, Kanishta adhikar, they are described as being, they are more fixed on the external aspect of things. And one of the main points about them that is mentioned is that they can appreciate the deity. They worship the Lord, but they cannot always appreciate the devotee. They do not recognize or appreciate, they have a lack of appreciation for they worship Krishna, but they cannot appreciate Krishna's devotee. And also, I'm reiterating because we're now streaming on Facebook and there's also people joining. And then also that they follow more in a kind of social or cultural way, rather than it being as a result of deep inner conviction. So, for example, in the temple, they may conform to everything very perfectly, but outside of the temple, their social lives are not defined by the principles of their faith. As we develop, then our faith becomes more about subtle things, we can say. our faith and our development, our progress is based more on subtle considerations rather than environmental or some like external regulating force. Our spiritual lives are determined more by our inner conviction and faith and all of these things on a more subtle level. One very nice example of that mentioned by Srila Sridhar Maharaj is in regards to the taking of prasad, food stuff that has been offered by the Lord. So at different stages of development, one may have different conceptions of what constitutes prasadam. And also according to one's faith, then prasad will be and should be honored and recognized in different ways. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj gave this example of the honoring of prasad, what is appropriate and what is more customary for persons of these three different stages of development. And so he said for the primary level devotee, then it is good for them to take prasad which has been directly offered to the deity. That's been through the whole formal process of preparing and offering through so many mantras, etc., to the deity on the altar. For the lowest level Vaishnava, it is best for them to take that kind of prasadam. That will be the best for the cultivation of their faith. And then he said the middle level, madhyam level Vaishnava, they don't have so much necessity for that. They don't have as much dependence on on how things have been done on a formal level. And then he said, so a madhyam adhikar, they will accept some, they may take some food, any food, and they will mentally offer it to the Lord. And then that can be considered prasad. They're making they're at a sufficient level of development that they can internally make some offering, and that can be considered prasad, and they can take that. And also, as I said, we can take different things from each of these points. It's not that we'll say, oh, I'm not a madhyam level Vaishnava, so I won't ever make a mental offering. No, if we're in a circumstance where we don't have any other choice, then we can follow that example, the madhyam middle level Vaishnava. So the first level Vaishnava, it is best for them to take prasad that has gone through the whole process of formal offering. For the middle level Vaishnava, they can make a mental offering. And then the highest level Vaishnava, he said, they don't even have to make any offering at all. Because they're situated on such a deep level of God consciousness that automatically everything that's coming to them, they're considering prasad. They're so deeply living in that consciousness that there's no question of it being otherwise. Sometimes simple-hearted devotees, they can be very fanatic about whether things have been offered. Somebody told me a very funny story. I think it was one of our Western devotees visiting Navadvip, and somebody handed them a glass of water, and they asked, has it been offered? Was it offered? So sometimes our sweet, simple-hearted devotees, they can become very fanatic about this, everything, someone, a Vaishnava wants to give you a cookie or an apple, and they want to know, did you offer that? Was that offered? And on one level, we can appreciate that. But on a higher level, we have to think, what is prasadam actually? It's actually a very deep question. And really, it depends upon faith. That's what it really depends on. Srila Maharshi, he in one place he says, prasadam is the will of Krishna. Prasadam is the will of Krishna. So where Krishna has willed something to be prasadam, that is prasadam. No. And this is actually a point of debate, because Srila Sridhar Maharshi always took a very deep approach to things. And so, he considered that prasadam was prasadam according to the degree of consciousness, and at different stages, the consciousness of who prepared that offering, the consciousness of who made that offering, and the consciousness of the person who took that offering. After it became prasadam, how much it's prasadam depends upon the consciousness at these three different stages of these three different persons. So, we may receive like some Mahaprasad, but if we are not in the right consciousness, we're not really reaping the benefits of that, to speak a little crudely. But we're not able to avail ourselves of what grace is there, because our own consciousness is in a lower place. And we can also say, if the person who offered it, the person who cooked it, were in a low level of consciousness, then something will be lacking there. But on the other hand, if the person who takes it is at a higher level of consciousness, they can compensate for whatever is lacking. It's a very deep subject matter. But I like very much something that Goswami Maharaj said, one of our sannyasis. Prasadam is what comes from the hand of a Vaishnava. I think it is a very beautiful way to end that debate, because it can be a debate. What is prasadam? Is it prasadam? It's a point that can be debated very much. And I think that simplifies it very much. What comes from the hand of a Vaishnava? If a Vaishnava gives you some prasadam from their heart, then it will be offensive for you to ask them, oh, did you offer this to the deity? That what's coming like directly from the hand of a Vaishnava, that's actually higher than what has been offered to from the hand, from a pure Vaishnava, that's higher than what is coming from the deity actually. But anyway, I think I've gone off on a tangent there, but that's a whole other conversation. So different stages of different adhikar of Vaishnava. So we were referring to these verses in Srimad-Bhagavatam. So this example of different ways to honor prasad, this is an example where you can see these different levels of qualification. So to go back to these verses in Srimad-Bhagavatam, then the lowest level, Kanishta Adhikar Vaishnava, we mentioned something. In gist, they're fixed more on the external aspect of things, have less of an eye for the inner substance. And it is also mentioned, there are some nice purports there in Srimad-Bhagavatam, that such devotees, they should be encouraged. For example, if someone is very attached, someone may be very attached to a particular service, let's say deity service, they may not have so much appreciation for the devotee, but if they continue that service with faith, then as time goes by, they will be able to receive more grace, and their conception will develop and expand. These are all stages of development. So anyhow, so then we can move on. The description given of the Madhyamadikar Vaishnava is very helpful. and it is an example which we can try to follow. We won't think of ourselves as Madhyam Adhikar. Actually, a Madhyam Adhikar Vaishnava is a very high stage. But we can try to follow the example. And so this verse in Srimad-Bhagavatam describes the behavior, the nature of the Madhyam Adhikar, middle class Vaishnava, that they will, and actually, I think a few weeks ago I did this kids class about Dhruva Maharaj, the boy saint, Vaishnava saint, Dhruva Maharaj. And there are some teachings of teachings of Narada, who also initiated Prahlad. And in his teachings, he recommends the behavior which is described as characteristic of the middle class, Madhyam Adhikar Vaishnava. And that is, I'm trying to remember the Sanskrit. I can't remember right now. But their characteristic will be to avoid those who are inimical, those who are anti, they will avoid them. Those who are ignorant, they will give them mercy. Those who are equal, they will seek friendship with, and for the Lord, they will have prema, they will have love. So this is a very helpful guideline that we can try to emulate. And this point about, in particular, this point about, those who are inimical, we will be indifferent to them. It is helpful because sometimes, we get this idea that we're supposed to save everybody, we're supposed to save the world, but that's really dependent upon our capacity. And we hear about, Nityananda Prabhu, Mahaprabhu, delivering Jagai and Madai, who were, these very, appearing as very low class, violent drunkards. Nityananda Prabhu, nevertheless, came to them and gave them his mercy. But that's not something that we can imitate. We have to recognize our own capacity. But so then the third level, the highest level, Uttamadhikar, Uttam class Vaishnava, their nature is that they see Krishna everywhere. They see Vrindavan everywhere. They don't recognize fault anywhere. And actually, it's an interesting point, but in terms of preaching, it's not very helpful, actually. And so it is mentioned that if the Uttam Adhikar devotee, the highest level devotee, descends to this world in order to spread Krishna consciousness, then they actually have to descend to a lower level, a lower stage of consciousness in order to be able to preach. Preaching is the order of the Madhyam Adhikar Vaishnava, the middle class Vaishnava, where they see what is to be strived for. They're seeing what is the ideal, and they're also recognizing what is the fault. They're also recognizing what is lacking, and then they're seeking to correct that. So preaching is the field of the middle class Madhyam Adhikar Vaishnava, because the Uttam Adhikar Vaishnava, they don't see anything wrong. Everything's perfect. Everyone's serving Krishna. So that is one classification that is given in Srimad-Bhagavatam. And there are in other places, there are other descriptions given. Also in Upadeshamrita, the Nectar of Instruction by Srila Rupa Goswami, there's a there's a verse there which also gives some guidelines as to how we will honor these different types of Vaishnavas. And it mentions that that more primary level Vaishnava, we will mentally give them honor. We may not formally, physically give them so much honor, because that will not be helpful for them actually, or nor for ourselves. But mentally we will give them honor, and of course we will treat them with respect. And then more developed middle level Vaishnava, we will give them more formal honor and consideration and seek their friendship and guidance. And then the highest level Vaishnava, we will surrender our lives to. We will wholeheartedly try to serve them. And interestingly, the characteristic given in that verse of Srila Rupa Goswami about the highest level Vaishnava is that they have no tendency to criticize anyone, which is similar to the description in Srimad-Bhagavatam. They don't see any faults. They don't see any faults. This is our disease in this world, and this is also mentioned at the beginning of Srimad-Bhagavatam, Matsarja, envy. This is our principal disease, that we can't tolerate that the goodness of others, the superiority of others. We like to seek out the faults in others, and we like to put ourselves in a higher position. But they're nindadi shunya pridam ipsita sangha labhi. They have no tendency for ninda, for criticism. Is that helpful, Chinmoy Prabhu?
Yes, Didi, thank you very much.
Hey. Yeah. Okay, well, as I said, we had an anonymous question come in as well just now. Someone saying that a devotee they know, they respect and admire, and who they consider to be a devotee of some real qualification and maturity, but they have a problem with drinking. So how should we view that person? Let me just double check here. Yeah, how can we not judge or help them? But they're regularly drinking, but they seem very advanced. Well, see, there are material faults and there are spiritual faults. This is a difficult subject matter, because it's an area where it's very easy to go too far to the left or go too far to the right. But we're always advised to go the middle path. But the main point here is that there are material faults and there are spiritual faults. And so what I mentioned just now about envy, that's a spiritual fault. That's something very serious that can kill our spiritual lives. And then these kind of faults, problems with struggling with following these kinds of principles, like the 4 regulative principles, these are material faults. And so we don't ignore them, but at the same time, we don't take them overly seriously. So, these are following, like one way Gurudev put it was, these are human principles. These are things just to make us human. These are basic human principles, but they're not actually Vaishnava principles. These things won't make you Vaishnavas. if we follow these principles of no intoxication, no gambling, no illicit sex, no meat eating. If we following that just brings you to a human level, basically, you're better than the animals, but it doesn't make you a Vaishnava. So we shouldn't put undue emphasis on those things. But at the same, we have to see, that statement of Srila Saraswati Thakur is so helpful to us. Religion is proper adjustment. We have to see everything with properly adjusted vision. So we try to follow these things for different reasons. On an internal level, it helps us to stay at some standard of purity, which will support our spiritual development. They help us to live in the mode of goodness, which in Sattva Gun, and that is the best support for our spiritual culture. However, it does not equal spiritual progress. It can support spiritual progress, but it doesn't equal spiritual progress. Because however much material you have, you cannot make it spiritual. Material and spiritual are two separate things, categorically different things. So what is of this worldly plane, the saguna plane, it can never touch the nirguna plane, the transcendental spiritual plane. They're two separate things. However, we can try to as I said, try to live our lives, conduct our lives on the material level in such a way that supports our spiritual development, but we shouldn't think that it equals spiritual development. So that's one consideration for our own inner development. It is helpful to follow these principles. And then on another point, we can say, from a social consideration, we want to give some dignity. We want to keep some dignity in the mission of Mahaprabhu. And if we think of how much Srila Saraswati Thakur, how hard he had to work, Srila Saraswati Thakur, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, how much blood they gave. That's one way Srila Sridhar Maharaj put it. Saraswati Thakur shed so many gallons of blood, in his distribution of what is real Krishna, trying to give what is real Krishna consciousness. Actually, one thing, I think we might have mentioned this last week, but that he in order to establish what Krishna consciousness is not, he gave so much energy, gave so many gallons of blood for that. So we don't want to help people think badly of the followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Shri Radha Krishna. So for that reason also, it is good to try to live a clean and upstanding, respectable life. To try to give some dignity, to try to do some justice, to what is the purity of Mahaprabhu's message. So the way we conduct ourselves is important in that regard. We can all think of ourselves as representatives of Guru and Gauranga. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he made this one comment about a couple who had divorced, and they were remarrying. And maybe we can qualify this also by saying Srila Sridhar Maharaj was very conservative and coming from a particular background, in a very cultured Brahminical background. So we can qualify this by that. Perhaps in our modern Western environment, it doesn't mean as much. But anyhow, his comment was, was they were devotees, they were a couple who divorced, and then they were both marrying different partners again. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj heard that, and he was upset. And he said, how will they understand the sacrifice, the high sacrifice of the Braja Gopis? No. If you think about it, the Braja Gopis, they left their husbands to serve Krishna, right? And again, in our modern Western environment, this perhaps doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's actually, if we think about what in that type of society, you know, the stipulations of the Vedas, of the scripture, they are all in all. You know, Dharma is everything. And so to go against the Dharma, that is a very big thing to do. And they didn't do it for their own enjoyment, but they did it as a genuine sacrifice for the service of Krishna. So Saraswati Thakur, Srila Sridhar Maharaj said that how will they understand the sacrifice that the Braja Gopis made to do something like that? You know, if we are living ourselves in a loose way, then we cannot appreciate these things. And this is another point. If we look at Krishna, you know, Krishna, he's a womanizer. You know, he doesn't abide to the standard rules of morality of this worldly plane. So how can we really appreciate the purity of that unless we ourselves are living, following some standard of purity? So this is one point. But these things, they should not be used as a hammer to hit anybody on the head. And, you know, we have to be very, very careful because we don't know what someone is going through. We don't know what struggle someone is going through. Everything actually depends upon one's sincerity. And, you know, a devotee may be drinking, but they may be sincerely struggling with that. And very soon, no doubt, they will get over that. It is just something, it can be a stage of purification that they're going through. We don't know, no? And in this regard, in particular, there are some very important verses in Srimad-Bhagavatam. And I wanted to share the translation, actually. I have it here. Srila Sridhar Maharaj included them in Prapana Jivanamritam. And these are our Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj, and also our grandfather Guru, Srila Sridhar Maharaj. They both emphasize these verses so much. So they're very important for us. They're encouraging for ourselves, and they also help us to have some broad mind in regards to how we view other devotees, practitioners. Okay, seems like there's a limit to how much text I can put here. But so one point that is mentioned there is this purging process. So there's the Sanskrit. You know, it can be, we will go through, or we may go through, but more likely than not, we will go through a purging process. And in that stage, then one's faults, they may come more to the surface, sorry. They may become more prominent. Okay, yeah, it seems like there's a limit here to how much. Okay, well, sorry, this is not looking so reader friendly, but anyway, you can look these verses up in the Veda base, or they're in Prapana Jivanamrita, also Revealed Truth. There's a place. It's so, these verses are so beautiful. We can read them. Actually, I didn't include Srila Sridhar Maharaj's introductory. I'll just read these verses. Jato Shadhamat, it's 4 verses. Jato Shadhamat Katasu Nirvina Sarva Karmasu Veda Dukatma Kankaman Padityage Pyanishara Tato Bhajeta Mamprita Shraddha Lord Drijanishchaya Dushamanashta Tankaman Duka Darkam Chagarhayan Proktena Bhakti Yogena Bhajato Masa Krinmune Kam Hridaya Nashanti Sarvamaya Hridistate Bidyate Hridayagrantis. This verse is the most famous here. Vidya, the knot on the heart, in the final stage, the knot of purification, the knot on the heart will be pierced. Vidyate hridayagrantis, chidyante sarva samshaya, kiyante chashakarmani, mayijushte kilatmani. This first paragraph is Srila Sridhar Maharaj's own kind of like summary of the essence of these verses. For one who receives the seed of devotion, who is selfless and penitent, denouncing his inability to abandon mundane enjoyment despite realizing it to be the embodiment of suffering. And this is so much the case, that we may struggle with these habits. We want to be free of them. We know we know that they're just suffering, but we can't give them up. We can't give it up. We're too bound up at that time. We signed too many contracts. We can't get free at this time. But in our heart of hearts, we know we don't want this, and we know it will only give us trouble, but we can't, like an addict, how many people smoke and they want to give up smoking? How many people are alcoholics and they want to give up alcohol? They know it's destroying their lives, but they can't stop. So all of our material tendencies, whether subtle or gross, they're like that, tendencies and habits. We know they're just trouble, but we can't stop. So inability to abandon mundane enjoyment, despite realizing it to the embodiment of suffering, who sincerely gives themselves incessantly to all the practices of devotion. In the heart of such a devotee, the Supreme Lord ascends like the rising sun to annihilate all ignorance with its reactions, revealing his divine personality in all its pristine glory. And then now this is a translation of those 4 verses. He who has imbibed heart's faith in the tidings of my name, this is spoken by the Lord himself, in the tidings of my name, nature, and is so kind, so benevolent, so encouraging to every struggling devotee. In the tidings of my name, nature, and pastimes, who has become indifferent to all kinds of fruitive work and its rewards, who has learned that all forms of enjoyment of sensual passions ultimately transform into misery. Yet he is unable to fully abandon such passions. Such a faithful devotee, being determined that his shortcomings will be dispelled by the potency of devotion, gradually comes to abhor those evil passions that enslave him, knowing the havoc they wreak, and he serves me with love. When his objective is pure and sincere, I give him my mercy. In this way, the introspective devotee unceasingly absorbs himself in all the practices of devotional service as enunciated by me. And I, who am situated in the heart of my devotee, strike at the root of all the material urges that infect his heart, reducing them to oblivion. By bringing me, the soul of all souls, into his heart, no evil can remain there. Swiftly is the hard knot of mundane ego severed. All doubts are slashed, and all mundane action is exhausted for the earnestly aspiring devotee. These verses are so beautiful. I mean, these can be like a daily meditation. They're so encouraging. There's another important verse in Srimad-Bhagavatam. I can't remember. How does it go? But the verse is saying that there are these series of verses in Srimad-Bhagavatam, Devarshi Bhutapta Nunam Pichinam. There's one verse saying that the Ananya Bhakta, the pure, the exclusive devotee whose only intention is to have pure love for the Lord, they are not bound by the traditional obligations of your average person in society. Those obligations customarily being, to the devas, the gods, to the ancestors. I can't remember, few others, but in other words, we all have some, and actually, the whole Vedic system. Oh, thank you, Chinmay Prabhu, sharing. Yeah, I'm mentioning that, but then the next one is the one that I want. Can you find that one? I want the next one, not this one, but the next one. But this verse, yeah, so yeah, to the devas, the sages, yeah, that's another one, other living entities, relatives, mankind, ancestors. So the person who's exclusively given to the cause of Krishna, they don't have to follow these general duties that the average person has to follow. And then this other verse, which I'm trying to remember, is like continuing on this thread and saying that the exclusive, yes, thank you, Prabhu, this is it. Saparamulam bhajata priyasya chaktanya bhavasya hari paresha vikarma yachot patitam katanchid dunoti sarvam hridi sanivishta. Someone who's given up everything else and fully taken shelter of Krishna, they should not be bound by customary, what's the word I want? Regulatory punishment, or I'm not getting the right word. But they should not be, they do not need to be punished by an outside force. They do not need to be corrected. Why? Because they are personally in the care of Krishna. So therefore, vikarma means like bad activity, sinful activity. Should they somehow or other come to commit some sinful activity, they should not be judged or punished for that. Why? Because they are personally in Krishna's care, and Krishna, he is in their heart. He will personally purify them. And there was one famous incident in connection with this verse, where one of the godbrothers of our grandfather Guru, he was doing something wrong, and there were a lot of we can just say basically he was misappropriating funds. He was the main secretary of the mission of Saraswati Thakur, and so he had access to the funds, and he was misappropriating them. He was using them for the use of some of his relatives, and so there were naturally there were complaints about this, and other godbrothers, they couldn't tolerate this, and so they were bringing this. They were bringing complaints to Saraswati Thakur about this, but Saraswati Thakur, he remained aloof. He did not respond to their complaints, and so this group, who were angry about this, they finally approached Srila Sridhar Maharaj, our grandfather Guru, because they knew they thought if he were to bring it to Saraswati Thakur, because one of Srila Sridhar Maharaj's known qualities was his neutrality. His what was the word used in the disinterested nature. There was a famous comment that somebody made about Srila Sridhar Maharaj, glorified him for his deep intelligence strong common sense and disinterested nature. And by disinterested nature is meant someone who is not a biased person, but who can take a neutral view. So this was one thing that Srila Sridhar Maharaj was renowned for. And so they thought, if he will bring it to Saraswati Thakur, Saraswati Thakur will listen and respond to this complaint. So they approached Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj by nature did not want to get involved, but they pressed him, and finally he agreed. And so Srila Sridhar Maharaj approached Saraswati Thakur and brought up this issue of the godbrother who was embezzling funds, and Saraswati Thakur, he was actually disappointed. He said, even you, I didn't think that you would also come to me with this. And in just Saraswati Thakur's feeling was that devotee had done so much service on the positive side that even if they were doing something wrong, they were misusing some of the funds for their own use, Saraswati Thakur was willing to overlook that because he had so much appreciation for what that devotee had done on the positive side. And one of the things he said was, if everybody left, then if I only had him, I could start everything again, because he's such a great servitor. Maybe he has some faults, but he has given so much energy for this mission. I cannot ignore that. So he gave some response at that time. And then 6 months later, they were in another city. I think it was Madras, which has another name nowadays. Is it Chennai, or I'm not sure. Maybe it's still Madras, I don't know. But anyhow, 6 months later, they're in another city. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj happened to be accompanying Saraswati Thakur at that time as part of some travel, they were on some preaching excursion. And so then one day, Saraswati Thakur is sitting in his room, he's going through a copy of Srimad-Bhagavatam, and he's going through the pages, and he came to this verse, this last verse here that Chinmoy Prabhu shared, Swapadamulam Bhajata Priyasya. We didn't read the translation fully. One who has thus given up all other engagements and has taken full shelter at the lotus feet of Hari is very dear to the Lord. Indeed, if such a surrendered soul accidentally commits some sinful activity, the Supreme Lord, who is seated within everyone's heart, immediately takes away the reaction to such sin. So he came to this verse, and then he told his assistant there, his servant, to call for Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj came in the room. And Saraswati Thakur, he pointed to this verse in the book, and he said, here's the answer to your question. This is 6 months later in a completely different city. And just out of the blue, he said like that, here's the answer to your question. And at first, Srila Sridhar Maharaj was a little puzzled, and then he heard, and then he connected, and he understood what he was referring to. So that was Saraswati Thakur's conclusion on that issue, that this devotee, they're fully surrendered, they're fully giving themselves, and they have some fault within them, but we will give them time and space to work through that. And Krishna he's in their heart, he will purify them himself. So, this broad view is necessary. And, our Gurudev, he would, another point is that, to go back to how we started out, there's material faults and spiritual faults. and the the two are never equal to each other, and one does not determine the other. Now, not necessarily, it may, because eventually, as a result of spiritual development, then our material faults, they will naturally fade away. That's really how the real process works. But in the middle, there's going to be lots of different things going on, and somebody may have more material, let's say more material, spiritual material qualities, but they're lacking in genuine spiritual qualities. What I mean is, someone may be able to follow all of these formal regulative things very well, but they're lacking the essence of what real spiritual culture is about. And then vice versa, someone may be more advanced in essential spiritual qualities, but they may struggle with following the more formal aspects of Vaishnava behavior. So it's a very tricky thing, and it's something our Gurudev used to say. I heard our Gurudev say this so many times. We don't know who is a Vaishnava. We don't have the eyes to see that. It's a subtle matter, and it takes a Vaishnava to recognize a Vaishnava. And it is only through grace also that we can recognize a Vaishnava. It's not an easy thing. So we have to be careful. And what it really comes down to is practicing Paramahamsa Dharma. The Paramahamsa, for those who aren't familiar, it is a way of describing the great saints, the greatly advanced Vaishnavas. And the word Hamsa means swan, and Param means great. So literally Paramahamsa means a great swan. And it refers to this special ability of swans, that it is said that if you give them a bowl of water and milk mixed together, then they're able to just take out the milk and leave the water behind. So this refers to the ability of great Vaishnavas to be able to extract the spiritual essence in any given situation or any given person. They can see the essential aspect of anything. So Paramahamsa Dharma, this is one aspect of our practice, that we're trying to see that essence in persons and in any given situation, to look past the external aspect of things and to see the essence, and to try to collect the essence. We must try to take the good, in other words, from everyone. So we can take this from this person, we can take that from that person. We'll leave that behind in that person and leave that behind in that person. No, we are trying to grow in Krishna consciousness, and we can do that by collecting what goodness we can from others. We are students, so we want to overlook the bad and try to recognize what is genuinely good in other devotees, and to take that from them. There are many, this is a big discussion, and there are many important points to consider. Another consideration is that, we may consider that a devotee has a great profundity of spiritual wealth within their heart, but because of their material habits, we may consider that their direct association is not so helpful for us. Or it may be that we recognize, a depth of spiritual quality in someone, but because they're not able to follow a particular standard, then we may not promote them in a public way so much. They may not be fit to act as a representative. They may not be the right person to put on the front line, to put on the stage. However, there may be someone who privately or in an informal context, we may seek advice from them. And I can say, the experience that I've had in Krishna consciousness is that, some of the devotees, I've been in the mission for. I was born into this. So I've had a lot of experience, and the experiences that I've had, they've helped me to have a very broad view on this point. And some of the devotees who helped me the most, probably even if I had to make a list of the top 5, several of them, they struggled with some of these things that we're discussing, so that's given me a very particular perspective, that they're not disqualified from devotion because they have these bad material habits. They're not qualified from spiritual qualities because they have bad material quality. It doesn't work like that. And then we can also, that's just my experience, but more significantly, we can say our Gurudev, some of the devotees who he appreciated the most, they struggled with these things. And not to say that he approved of their bad habits. He didn't like them, I know of many private comments he made. He really didn't like that. But at the same time, it didn't stop him from his appreciation. It didn't stop him. It didn't affect his appreciation for those devotees. It didn't stop him from honoring and celebrating those devotees. Because of their spiritual qualities and their degree of service. So it's a very, as I said, it's a very big issue, and there are many points to consider. I think there was more I wanted to say on that, but Chinmoy Prabhu, you want to add anything to that discussion?
Didi, have you also heard what Saraswati Thakur gave the example of gold and how pure gold is malleable, very malleable? So if you put some design in gold, you can easily, move that gold or destroy that design. But if it's alloyed with something else, if some other metal is put in there, then it becomes very hard. And in relation to that devotee that you mentioned earlier, that associate of Srimad Thakur.
Yeah, Gurudev made that comment for sure. I'm not sure, maybe Saraswati Thakur also, but that's right. That's right. That devotee in particular, he had some material nature, but he was like the alloy, like the impurity that helped to make the gold ornaments. Yeah, that was a point also we heard Gurudev make a few times. He would say that to make a mission, then you need some alloy. You need someone who can handle and deal with the more material aspect of things. Yeah. Yes.
And I think we can really see that with Srila Swami Maharaj. I mean, the material that he used to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world may not
Right.
have been the purest, but he was using that for that mission.
Yes, these great messiahs, they have this capacity to engage and to utilize everyone in Krishna consciousness. Yeah, well, there was something else I wanted to say in that, but I can't think of. There's so many. It's a very big discussion. But you know, in gist, we'll be careful. We will be careful in how we see devotees. And I mean, another thing is that as time goes by, if we're really practicing, then our own weaknesses will come more to the surface, and naturally we'll become more sympathetic and understanding. You know, I think we all go through that initial stage of you know, like a young fanatic who thinks they're better than anyone else. and then as time goes by, you start to realize, oh, hang on, you know, I have, you know, my own weaknesses are starting to manifest. You know, I remember when I first like joined full time, I had this kind of arrogance, and I remember, like, I would look at some of the senior devotees and think like, what are they actually doing? Like, what do they actually do? and I was like, I'm like running around all day doing this and doing that. I had this some arrogance, you know. But as you know, as the years have gone by and I faced different struggles myself, then I realize I'm looking back with new appreciation. You know, I'm not back; they're still around, they're still present. I'm looking in them with new appreciation and realizing, wow, it's not easy, you know, just to stay in Krishna consciousness. What to speak of, you know, playing that kind of role, holding some role of responsibility. You know, it is not an easy thing. You know, there are so many challenges within and without that will come, and so just to be able to continue with that, that's not a light thing. You know, so you know, as if we are practicing properly, then you know, we'll face our own struggles, and inevitably we will look with more of a sympathetic eye upon others. We also have to be very, very careful, and this is one of the trade secrets of Krishna consciousness, that if we point the finger at others, it comes back to us. Srila Sridhar Maharaj described it as chewing poison. You know, if we're analyzing the faults or judging the faults of others, or condemning others, that fault will come to us also. So we have to be very, very careful. And you know, as I said, you know, there's a difference in terms of how we deal with that devotee. There will be a difference, or there may be depending on the degree of you know, how extreme their misbehavior is, then there may be a difference in our internal and external approach to that person. You know, you know, in our heart, we may hold them in a high position, but on a social level, we may not promote them so much. Or etc., etc. I said all that already. Oh, but it was also mentioned about helping. That's a nice point, actually. Should we, how or should we help them? Yeah, that's an interesting angle too. We have to be careful with that, because there can be, especially if it's somebody who's senior to us, then it would really just be arrogance to try to help them, because we don't know if there's someone who we, if they're an equal, what we were discussing in the beginning about these the characteristics of different levels of Vaishnavas, someone who is weaker than ourselves, someone who has less than us, we should try to help them. And also someone who is an equal to us, who we can speak to with an open mind, then also we can try to say something according to our level of understanding, and with the sincere intention of trying to help them, not with any angle of superiority, etc., etc. But if we have that sincere desire to help, then a junior person or an equal person, then it will be appropriate for us to say something. But if it's someone who's in a higher level than us, whether just formally or if we truly feel that substantially in terms of their own spiritual qualification are higher than ourselves, then it is not really correct for us to say, because we don't know what their position is. I mean, in their relationship with the Lord, we don't know what position they hold. We don't know what they're going through. They may be going through a purging process right now. We just don't know. We are in no position to know at all. So it is not our place to say anything to them. It may, what we could depend, it all depends on the circumstances and the details. But depending on the exact details of the case, then it may be appropriate to refer the matter to another senior person, put it in someone else's hands. If it's something that needs attention for some reason, then we can refer it to somebody else who's better situated to deal with it. But we should be careful about having that arrogance, that we're better than them or we can help them. No, rather, we want the mercy of someone has more depth of what is the essence of Krishna consciousness in their hearts. We only want their grace. Whatever material faults they have, it's not our place to judge or correct, but we want to be in a position of receiving their grace. So it is not for us to try to help. That's what they're going through. It's between them and their guru and Krishna. And it's not for us to, we don't know. We don't know what's going on. Does anyone else have any thoughts in this regard? Anyone else want to share anything? We have Divya Shakti Devi with us this week. Very exciting. And we have our new friend Jorge, Ananga Krishna Prabhu from Tijuana. We have Ananga Manjari Devi calling from London. And we have our friends Chintamani Jayadev also. Dandavad.
Dandavad. We want to introduce our very, very, very dear friend. This is Kelly.
Hello, Kelly.
Very sincere devotee and yogini that's been our friend for, God, I don't even know how long, years, but she hasn't met you. Family, yeah.
Wow. It's an honor to meet you, Kelly.
Lovely to be so inspired by your words. They're like,
thank you for joining us this week.
My pleasure.
Dandavad, Vishakha Didi.
Dandavat Devi Shakti, please give us some mercy. Please give us some of your, you have so much, not only experience, but depth of heart in Krishna consciousness. Please say something to grace us, please.
That's funny. That's very funny.
It's not funny. She's too humble.
No, everything is good. Your words are very beautiful. You explained it really well about the, the principles and, actually what I feel is that to make people your friend is very important.
Mhm.
You know, to be a friend of the new people that come to our mission and to learn more about them. It's really, really important to make people feel comfortable and to be affectionate, no matter what qualities they have, because like you say, eventually all these qualities will go away. The anartas, the bad things, the principles, the things that people cannot follow. As we practice Krishna consciousness, we know this, it will fall away. So we had a really sweet gathering yesterday at a yoga center, and we are making so many beautiful friends, and they have a time where everybody goes around and says something. Someone may ask a question, and then everybody in the room goes around and answers it. And so you get to know people, you introduce yourself, and then you get to know people, and then people naturally just open up to you, and you get inspired, and they get inspired, and it's a very beautiful gathering. And so we kind of like going there every Sunday, and it's very sweet. And I think making people your friend is very important for them to accept their spiritual path, accept Krishna consciousness. And I mean, we all know that to some degree, but when you practice Krishna consciousness, then the desire for all those anartas, they fall away. So anyway, I just wanted to say a little something. I don't have much to say, but I just wanted to add a little something. I did get cut off a little while you were speaking, but I heard most of your lecture, and it's very nice. Anyway, it's so nice to see you, and nice to see everybody, and be here. So I don't know what else to say. Well, you can ask me something, but I don't know.
You look effulgent.
Oh, really? I was thinking I look kind of funky.
No, you don't. You look wonderful.
Maybe I should put my glasses on and see what I really look like to you guys. No, but it's very nice that you're giving such beautiful association to so many people. And Jayadev and Chintamani, they always have some new people coming, and it's so beautiful. So beautiful that they're always sharing, and that's really nice, So I like honest dealings, genuine friendship, honesty, and a heart-to-heart connection with others. I think it's so important in life because there's so much cheating in the world, nobody trusts anyone anymore, and everyone's searching for happiness and peace and love and affection and, honesty, and, everyone's searching for reality, the beautiful, and we have to learn how to relate to each other. I think it's very important. Communication, I know with myself it's important, and I have a hard time with it, so but it's very important. And what was I hearing something I don't know, I guess Chinmoy Dave made me think about it yesterday. I think it was David Sheesh or something. He said, if you want to preach, you have to, like read the scriptures and know, so you have to know what you're talking about, I mean, a lot of things come from the heart, but it's very important to know the scriptures. And I must say that you are a very good, studier of the scriptures, of the revealed truth, so that, you can present it so sweetly and give so many beautiful examples from so many great personalities and acharyas. And you remember so many instructions from Guru Dev and Guru Maharaj because you're studying and you're reading. And I honor you for that. I really admire that in you. And I think it's very important for all of us and me, myself, to read more. So I'm trying to, and we're reading here together every day, Giridhari and Madhavananda here, and Braja Mohini and myself. And, it's quite nice. So, we try to do our little sharing and sadhana and things like that. So anyway, it's all good. Come in. Who is it? Yeah, it's Braja Mohini.
Hi, Braja Mohini.
Here she comes.
Wow, we have Devi Shakti and Braja Mohini. Wow. we're very blessed. These two ladies, they're like, way up there in our mission. They've given their whole lives to serving
She's rolling her eyes.
Braja Mohini Didi, we're about to wrap things up. Do you want to share anything? We were, in particular, our topic was about how do we see devotees who are struggling with bad habits. That was our topic. If you want to say anything on that or anything at all that comes to mind, that would be wonderful.
I said by being their friends. And
I'm an extremely judgmental person, so I'm not a very good person to ask this question because I'm always judging everyone. But that's something that I'm working on, is trying to realize, that it's not an external thing. So we, constantly trying to see the inner person, the inspired person, and remembering the verse that we know about from Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna is taking his devotees, and maybe so many things we're seeing externally in their character, in my character, in everybody's character. There's still the fan is still spinning, so to speak, in some ways, but again, I'm really the wrong person to ask, but it's a constant practice to try to remember to see that inner desire and aspiration that we know the devotees and ourselves are trying to have, and that the external stuff really is not so important, and it's there for some reason that we don't know what that reason is, and it's not our business to try to know or try to figure out. So anyway, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Didi.
Braja Mohini is always, she reminds me, she has this beautiful quality, like Siddhanti Maharaj has. She always is helping the underdog, always helping the most unfortunate person. And she's always trying to push them forward and give them affection. And I really admire that about her. And we know that about Siddhanti Maharaj, right? Isn't it true?
Yes.
So Braja always has that. She has that quality also. So I don't believe her that she's saying this. She doesn't see that. She sees she always tries to see the good quality and try to bring that out. Just like Gurudev. Gurudev would always see our good qualities and want to bring that out. He didn't want to see our bad qualities, our past, our anarthas. You know, he didn't want to see that. So we were very fortunate, you know, that Gurudev always overlooks all of these things. Yeah. And we're very blessed in that sense, you know. So we have a lot of good examples to follow in our life, in our spiritual life. So this is very wonderful. Like you, Vishakha, you inspire us so much.
Jai Devi Shakti Didi Ki Jai. Jai Brajamahini Didi Ki Jai. Thank you so much.
Jai. Jai Vishakha, keep it up. Keep inspiring us. It's so beautiful.
We hope you can come and visit Vishakha. We're meeting many new people, and did you tell her about yesterday? Saturday. We had a nice garden service work party on Saturday, and people came, and
Wow.
we're meeting some really super sweet, nice people, and we're going to the park now every Sunday and chanting and kind of just chanting and distributing prasadam and meeting more people. So we're waiting for you to come.
Yay!
I'm very, very excited. And as soon as it becomes possible, I would love to come.
Okay, good, nice, perfect. Well, we can talk more about that, and when you want, then please do come.
Oh, I'm very happy to have that welcome.
Yay.
You have the dream. You've got the dream team there. we have a few more devotees. Actually, for those of you in Europe, we started an hour earlier. I see Suvasini Didi joined. Maybe Suvasini is not in Chinmoy's group. But we started in because there was a time. Dandavad.
Actually, I just saw the message only now, but I was just going to tune in and just saw the message. Probably I didn't see it earlier.
Okay, so you are
anyway, it's nice to see you and hear Divya Shakti Didi also. Nice to see her today. So it's wonderful. Dandavad to everyone.
Dandavad. Jai Suvasini Didi. And also Nanda Srupini, she doesn't use WhatsApp, so she wouldn't have got the message. But I think it's just for this week and next week. We're doing it an hour early in Europe, and then there's a time change here, and I think the next Monday we'll be back to 7, I think.
Yeah, so everybody just keep an eye on the world clock. Just double check the times, because I'll always keep it at California time. So whatever it is, check with the world clock.
Oh, wait, so it'll always be 10 a.m. California time.
Yes.
Okay, that's helpful to know.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a nice, easy way to remember. Okay. All right. Also, Varun, I didn't say hello to Varun yet. Also, now a regular to our Monday meeting. Great to have you
Nice
with
to
us.
be here. Thank you.
All right. Well, should we end there? Any final thoughts? Dandavad Manjari.
How are you?
What did you say?
How are you? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Things are good. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that your little sister there?
Oh yeah, my brother and sister listening to and from my room.
Nice. Hello.
Say hello. Are you from Monisha's class?
Am I from what? Look at these. We have these three young, perfect Vaishnavas right here. And Ananga Manjari is like perfect devotee. How old? You're like 13 or something, right?
Yeah, I turned 13.
You just turned 13.
Last month. Yeah.
She's amazing. She was in London in the temple over the summer, and so such a beautiful devotee. Very, very mature in her understanding and her enthusiasm. So the future is bright when we have these kinds of youth. Okay, well, and there's Ananda Srupini. Dandavad. Dandavad. Very happy to see you. Ananga Krishna Prabhu, can I convince you to say anything? Please, something. It would be very nice to hear something. He's a very nice speaker, but he's a little shy. And English is his second language as well. Ananga Krishna Prabhu, will you say anything? Do you want to say anything?
Dandavat, Vishakha. I'm laughing. I just can't stop laughing. No, I don't want to say something. I came here as a listener.
Okay. All right.
Dandavat.
Dandavat.
Sometimes I have questions, but then I think, I don't know. Maybe in English it's hard for me.
Oh. If you like, you can send them in a message before if it's easier.
Okay.
As you like.
Okay.
You wanted to,
I'll think.
To suggest a topic. We have somebody else who's just tuned in now. Lito Yoga. Hello, Lito Yoga.
Hi, Vishakha, Dandavat, Govinda Nandini.
Oh, Govinda Nandini. You're coming cover.
It's my friend's Zoom, and I didn't log out from her Zoom.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I saw you here earlier as Govinda Nandini.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, great to have you with us as always.
Can I?
Yeah,
are you finishing?
No. Yeah, we started it at a different time. You might have heard an hour earlier, so we're finishing. But if you would like to share anything, that would also be very nice. Govinda Nandini is also very nice speaker.
Oh no, please! I just want to make a question. About I posted something about Kanishta Adhikari and Madhyama Uttama, and now someone keeps asking me, where is this concept from? Where did this concept start? As I researched, I found out it is Rupa Goswami's concept. Is it?
I mean, it's more of just a fact of life. It's just a gradation is everywhere. Gradation is just a fact of life. No, I mean, I don't know exactly where that person is coming from, but I can say that you know, because this world is so contaminated and corrupt in many ways, then there does tend to be a kind of resistance to what externally can appear as a hierarchical view on things. So that maybe that somebody may dislike this concept because of that, or view it in some limited way, because you know, hierarchy is so subject to corruption and exploitation in this world, right? But the fact of the matter is that gradation is just life. Like anything there is gradation, and so it's simply, you know, that, you know, there are different how can I say, there are different frameworks given in different places in the scriptures as to how we can recognize the gradation in Vaishnavas. And that's mentioned by Rupa Goswami, it is mentioned in Srimad-Bhagavatam, it is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is meant there are different like frameworks given in different places, but it's not that, you know, it's been it's not like somebody is like, you know, invented in the last few hundred years. It's just a recognition of different stages of understanding. And they're not meant to be labels that we stick on people either. It's just a recognition, as I said, of different stages of understanding. And they may not be, it may not be something that we directly apply in our daily lives, but it helps to inform us in our cultivation of the ideal, of the ideals of Krishna consciousness, helps to inform us in our understanding of what is the ideal of Krishna consciousness, what we are culturing, what we are striving for, recognizing what is a higher and lower level of understanding, and all of these points.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you. Great.
Yes, in Upadeshamrita, there's that verse describing how we should approach these different levels of Vaishnavas. And then Srimad-Bhagavatam, mostly I was discussing the 3 verses in Srimad-Bhagavatam. And then Mahaprabhu also gives some overview in Chaitanya Charitamrita in different places. And no doubt there are other places also in the scriptures.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, thank you very much.
Very happy to see you. Okay.
Is it possible to ask one last thing before we go?
We can keep going, and if anyone needs to go. No, it's fine. It's fine. I have some energy tonight, so we can keep going. If anyone needs to go, they can go. That's fine.
Thank you so much. Sometimes I was thinking lately about this thing. Sometimes it can happen. I find in my head, I might be, maybe I'll say something or do something or say something to someone I think is helpful, but then it's the total opposite, and it's not a good reaction, and then you feel really bad, and like on a practical kind of day-to-day kind of thing, and how to like harmonize that thing, or so it's hard. I guess it's just sort of a question / comment, like always like judging the right thing and to say or do at the right time is always a struggle, or can be a struggle. And I reckon you probably have some advice about that. So that's a bit of a stupid question.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's a wonderful question, and it's a very practical question for anyone who's trying to serve in a combined way with others. And I mean, I totally understand you. You're coming from a place of wanting to help others, and you have some recognition of what's right and what's wrong, and you may feel a sense of duty. Am I right? Is that where you're coming from? You in these circumstances, you feel a sense of duty. Oh, I should try to point this out to this person. I should try to help them. Is that where you're coming from?
Or sometimes I don't even realize I've got maybe zero recognition of what's right or what I think might be helpful at the time. But I think, I can explain this and that will clarify that, and then I get too much in other people's business, and then it's like, oh no, that didn't work too well. So you have to live together in a community, but then kind of keep a healthy relationship and a healthy distance. I don't know. I'm thinking about these things.
Well, there are 2 main things you have to consider here. One, do you have a good point to make, and where is it coming from? Is it just your own idea, or is it something that you've heard from a higher Vaishnava, you've heard from the scripture, you've heard from your guru? What is the real value of your comment? There's one nice comment Srila Shiramarj made, that it was something when he first started visiting the Gaudiya Math, before he joined, he said one of the things that really impressed him was how much deep conviction all of the members of the Gaudiya Math had in the teachings of Mahaprabhu, in Srimad-Bhagavatam, and the words of their gurus. They had this very deep conviction. But by contrast, you know, if anything that was quoted from somebody, in some worldly person, they would dismiss it. You know, they might quote Rabindranath Tagore or Mahatma Gandhi or this great person or that, but they wouldn't hear it. But if you quoted from Srimad-Bhagavatam, or you quoted Mahaprabhu, or you quoted Saraswati Thakur, then they took it with all seriousness. And it was something that really impressed Srila Sridhar Maharaj. They had this deep conviction, you know, in the revealed truth, and truth that is descending from a higher plane. And anything that came from some worldly minds, they didn't care for. It didn't matter how big their name was in the world. So that is one thing to consider. What is the real value of what it is that you are going to say? Is it based on what is the source of that? So that is one thing. And then the other point you have to consider, equally important, what is your relationship with that person? How close, what is the nature of your relationship, and how intimate is your relationship? Because you may have very good advice, you may have the best medicine, but that person's not ready to hear it, or maybe just not maybe in general, or maybe not from you, but in any case they're not able to hear that. Then you know, you can actually do more harm than good.
But it's often not really good advice anyway, or advice at all. I'm just exaggerating a bit, but yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. So first consider if the advice is really good, and then if they're able to receive that and to hear that. There was one very funny comment that Gurudev made. So Swarnangi Didi, one of our stalwart devotees in California, she shared with me how on their lands, they had this big piece of land, kind of like in the hills in California, and they had a bunch of people at one time staying on that land who were kind of like, you know, doing their own thing and not quite flowing with the you know, the current of the temple. And you know, maybe some of them were smoking, or they were leaving like cigarette butts around, or something they were doing. And then there were different things they were doing. And Swarnangi was trying to correct them, trying to advise them, but they were not receptive at all. And so Swarnangi, she asked Gurudev in a general way, like, you know, what do I do in a situation if I see someone's doing wrong, and I'm trying to point it out to them, but they're not listening. And Gurudev, her Gurudev's answer just completely shocked her. He said, if they will hear you, then you can tell them. Otherwise, to heaven or hell, let them go. You know, so there needs to be a level of detachment there. No. There has to be a level of detachment. No, you know, I mean, I've made that mistake so many times in different ways of overly involving myself in someone else's situation with the intention of helping them, you know, but you know, I didn't know the full details of the situation. They're not able to hear that, you know. So it just we can easily waste our energy like that. Is that helpful?
Thank you so much, Vishakha Devi. What's the purpose of saying it, and the relationship?
And also related is we have to consider what is our duty, because that's also a mistake that we can make. We think we have to help everybody, but that's not really the case. So we have to consider what is our duty in this situation and how necessary is it, because in simple language, I can say, you know, we may have a tendency of being a control freak, you know, or being like a mini manager of every detail, you know, which comes down to a control issue. You know, it's really, what I'm trying to say is we have to consider how necessary it is that this person is corrected, because on this point at this time, a lot of things, it's better for people to work it out for themselves. That's what I'm trying to say. People, a lot of things we need to learn them ourselves in our own way, in our own time. And it's not helpful for someone just to tell us, but we need to go through that. And it can also be condescending, you know, for us to point so many little things out to somebody. It can be very discouraging and condescending. But, you know, and this was something I mean, not that I had so much direct exchange with Gurudev, but my experience with Gurudev is that he really gave people that space. You know, he wasn't pointing out every little thing you did wrong, but he was, you know, letting you work it out for yourself. And that's something that impacts you more deeply. It becomes more meaningful, because we develop in stages. You know, it's about faith. It's about, you know, it's about development of faith. And faith is not something that is bound, that is a slave to, you know, to some regulation or some law coming down, or some theory that's thrown at you. The faith, it's not how the development of faith works. So that's what we have to consider. What is the, you know, how important is this point actually? Because another thing is sometimes the things that bother us, they're not really that important, you know, and you know, little things that people are doing wrong that just get on our nerves. You know, we can get lost in these details, and, you know, what's that expression? Miss the forest for the trees, something like that. You know, we get so lost in the details that we lose the big picture. You know, there may be a devotee who like has this overall thrust of you know, of great, you know, substance in Krishna consciousness, but there are a few messy details here and there, you know, but on a more substantial level, you know, there's something very beautiful that's coming out. So you know, like, oh, that person, just one example that's coming to mind, that person, they didn't wash the dishes at the time they were supposed to. It's on the schedule. Why do I have to do it? But like, what are all the other things that devotee is doing? You know, what kind of heart is, maybe they're not perfectly following the schedule, but what are all the other things that they're doing? What type of faith is growing in their heart? You know, so that's also important, to see the overall big picture, and you know, what are really the essential points of Krishna consciousness, and to know when and how to and what to point out and what not to point out. You know, it's necessary. If we're going to live in a combined, if we're going to serve in a combined way, it's vital that we develop this kind of sensitivity in our dealings with others. And then this brings us back to Gurudev's main preaching point, Trinada Pisa Nichena, Choriva Saishana, Amanina Manadena, Kirtaniya Sadahadi. Humility, tolerance, respect. These things will save us. So our behavior should also be informed, should always be informed. Our dealings with the devotees should always be informed by these principles. And if we can do that, we'll be okay. Also, we shouldn't get too hung. I mean, what I'm seeing in you, I think you're being too hard on yourself, because ultimately the intention is what matters. So, we may step on a few egos if we're awkward in the way we're doing things, but if our intention is good, then we're okay, But if we want to work harmoniously, if we want to develop better relationships, then we need to play the game, so to speak, and it's important to develop this kind of sensitivity. But in the big picture of things, if we have a little awkwardness, or we have some naivety in our dealings with others, or we're too direct. In the big picture, they're not bad qualities. It just means we won't be the best persons to make things happen. But it's not a serious fault in Krishna consciousness. So don't feel too bad. If we step on someone's ego unintentionally, that's really their issue, not our issue. So we don't have to beat ourselves up about that too much. It's not really a serious issue. Yeah.
Didi.
Yes, Prabhu.
I just like that because I just heard Gurudev speak on this subject a little bit, and he mentioned one time his devotee came to him, and Gurudev didn't say the particular fault. All he said is that the devotee said, "I need to follow my mind," and Gurudev said, "Yes, you follow your mind." And his thinking was that he's going to do this, and then at some point that will fall away from him, and then he'll be able to take instruction.
Very nice, very nice. You've reminded me another. Do you have to rush off, or is it okay if I?
I'm very happy.
Okay, I'll finish with this. You've reminded me of this really nice story, and it shows this kind of like level of detachment that Gurudev had in this regard. Where there was a devotee in the temple who was stealing something in the temple. And this was a senior devotee, an older devotee who had some responsible position. So he had access to resources in the temple. And he was taking some of this for himself. And Gurudev found out about it. But Gurudev decided not to say anything. But then that devotee found out that Gurudev had found out. And then he felt terrible, of course, especially because Gurudev wasn't saying anything. So then that devotee went to Gurudev and like confessed, "Oh, Gurudev, yes, I did this. I heard that you found out. Please, you give me some punishment." And Gurudev told him, you are an older devotee. So what can I say to you? You already know what's wrong and what's right. What will I say to you? If you were a new devotee, then I would explain to you what is right and what is wrong. But you already know, so I won't say anything to you. And that's already a very beautiful example from Gurudev. Because we have to develop our own initiative ultimately. Our own desire has to develop. as we mature, it shouldn't be about us following some rules, but about what we feel is right in our heart. And that was something that Gurudev always encouraged, that, we take responsibility for our spiritual lives. So if there's too much of this mood of like correcting others, it destroys that spirit. That beautiful line of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, we are the messiahs of developing free internal faith in the Lord. This is in Sri Guru and His Grace. One of the most amazing phrases ever spoken. We are the messiahs of developing free internal faith in the Lord. So beautiful. So this is an important thing to consider. So then this story gets better. Then that devotee, what they did is they ended up running away from the temple with some money. I think it was money or something they stole from the temple. They ended up running away. But they were a little foolish. On their journey, they stopped at another Gaudiya Math, and the devotees there were close with our Gurudev, and they thought he looked a little suspicious. So they called Gurudev, like, this devotee's here. Is everything okay? He'd said something that seemed a bit off, so they called Gurudev, like, this devotee's here from your temple. Is he all right? And Gurudev said, oh, well, yes, it's true. He just took such and such. And then that from the other temple, they said, well, should we hand him into the police? We'll hand him in. We'll call the police. And Gurudev said, no, Krishna will manage that. Krishna will manage that. He did something wrong. He was already inviting the reaction, right? And then Gurudev said, however, he took all of the keys for one of our buildings, and it will be too much trouble for me to break every lock and put a new set of lock and keys for each room. So just collect those keys from him, and that money and whatever else he took, he can take that. Krishna will manage that situation. It's just amazing. Just amazing. And because we have control issues, at least for myself, we like to control everything. But Gurudev, he had this detachment, because Gurudev didn't look at things in an objective way. I mean, what I mean is Gurudev was not about trying to achieve a particular objective result, but he was looking at the heart of each individual and what is necessary for their growth. So it's a very nice, very wonderful example that we can try to follow. Okay, well, I better stop there. We've made up for starting early, so nobody would miss if they came at the normal time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Didi. Very wonderful.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you especially Chinmoy Prabhu for always hosting this every week. And our gratitude to everyone for joining, giving us your good company. Narayani, Devi, I see, has also tuned in. Very happy to have you with us. Jai Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. All the assembled devotees ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Jai Gaur Premanande.
Jai Vishakha Devi Dasi ki Jai.